Hi, it's Heidi here with another episode of Creative Screen Time with Stop Motion. Today we're going to look at staging and lighting, with a little help from this gang. The first thing we're going to look at is creating a backdrop or stage for your stop motion movie. A backdrop can help your movie in a few ways, but let's look at the most important one first, with this slowed down clip. I think you will spot at least one problem pretty quickly. It's pretty hard to work out what is meant to be in the movie, isn't it? And what are those random things in the background? Believe it or not, it is really easy to make this mistake when you first start making stop motion movies. You can be so focused on what you're doing that your attention is only on your action and you kind of don't see what's going on behind it. But your audience do. And if it's distracting enough, such as a member of your family wandering past in their PJs, it will be the thing that gets the audience's attention. Something else you might have noticed is that the figures that are supposed to be in focus aren't. That's because my phone camera has automatically chosen what it thinks is the most important thing to focus on amongst all the mess, and has chosen something in the background, not what I want it to focus on. The good news is that it is pretty easy to fix this problem. All you need is a background, and even a plain one will make a big difference. White is probably the most straightforward colour to use, as your actors should show up well in front of it. In the next clip, all I've used without doing anything to it at all is one of these, a shoebox lid on its side. See what a difference something simple can make? Of course, you may want to make a different background to suit your scene and give it a bit more life. There are lots of different materials you can try. Toy bricks, a few layers of cellophane, a whiteboard, or a felt board are just a few. This is a really quick background I made a while ago using just plain cardboard and textures to try and give Yoda a swampy background. I also experimented with magnetic sand and plasticine for a stage, but that's a story for another day. For the stars of today's movie, I painted the background and the stage floor to match. I started off with 2 large pieces of cardboard, roughly the same size. I then painted them white to help keep the scene I am going to make quite light. Next, I chose just a few colours and added a lot of white paint to them. Again, this is so the background is not dark or overpowering. I've tried to avoid putting in too much detail, as again, it is not really the background I want people to look at. I keep the piece of card that I'm using as my stage floor flat, but I take the time to measure in from each side of my background evenly before carefully bending it into shape. See how this gives a back and some sides to my stage? See how my actors now look a bit more like they're in the right place and that the lighting seems quite even. This is because the background is doing a few things. It's cutting out distractions, helping to set the scene, and helping to even out and reflect the light. A top tip here is to stick your stage floor to your table with blue tack so it doesn't move during filming. Actually, stick as much as you can together using blue tack or a removable adhesive of some sort. One of the easiest things to do when making stop motion is to knock things over or out of place. Next, let's have a quick look at lighting. I'm lucky that I have a spot with lots of natural light to make my movies. I have natural light coming from both sides of me, thanks to a large window on one side and a skylight on the other. There is actually a bit of light coming from the windows behind my stage too, which is actually another good reason my stage is there, so that any glare that's coming from behind is blocked by the stage rather than creating glare. I've also turned on the ordinary house light above me, which helps even out my lighting a bit. So, you don't really need to do anything fancy for lighting. Just have a good hunt around at your place for a spot that has even natural light, But be careful that it isn't too bright either, as that can cause its own problems for your movie. If you want to be extra careful, choose a day that is lightly overcast so the light comes evenly through the clouds. If you film on a really bright sunny day, with the occasional cloud scudding by, you might find that your finished movie flickers from light to dark a bit as a cloud affects the amount of sunlight that's coming through. Of course, some homes are darker than others, so no matter how hard you try, you might end up with a scene that looks a bit like this. In that case, you might need to experiment with your indoor lighting. Are the house lights enough to brighten things up without making things look glary and harsh? If that still doesn't work, this next step comes with an important safety warning. We are going to talk a little bit about using movable lamps, like desk lamps. Do not use lamps unless you have the okay from an adult in the house, and never walk away from your work and leave them on. They can be dangerous, both for tripping over their leads and for the bulb getting hot near your work and your hands. Light from lamps is also much trickier to use than natural light, so I seriously advise trying natural light first. So, if you're going to try using one lamp, try to keep it near your camera, or the light coming from one side may be really bright and cast long shadows. You can see here that now I'm using a lamp. The light is a bit better than it was in my example where the natural light wasn't bright enough, but can you also see the light is a bit hard on my scene? And there's shadows even from my camera? There are ways to get your lamp light much more even and soft, but it takes a lot of work, and you might need more than one movable light. You might also need to find out about something called diffusing light too, to make the light softer. But this is getting into some pretty advanced territory. If you're super keen to explore lighting and have spoken to an adult at home about helping you work with lights, by all means go for it. It is another way to get creative and to take your stop motion to the next level. So I've added a PDF with some great tutorial links to our stop motion page for you to have a look at. Well, we've covered a lot today, so I'll sign off for now. But don't forget to tune in for our next instalment of Creative Screen Time with Stop Motion. Check out the stop motion link on CCL's library homepage if you've missed any instalments. You'll find the previous episodes there, along with some extra resources. Well, it's bye for me for now.